Well, good morning. My name is Ron Wills. I'm the founder of NABOE, the National Association of Business Owners and Entrepreneurs. And today's guest is Vince Proffitt, president and owner of Spartan Medical. Great topic today. Lessons from the principles of war guiding entrepreneurship. Really looking forward to hearing about this. But before we start, Vince, can you give us that couple minute just overview of who you are and a little bit about your company? I understand you're located in Rockville, Maryland, which is close by to NABOE's headquarters. So tell us a little bit about yourself and the company.
Vince Proffitt. I started my company in 2008 after my military background and whatnot, which we'll talk a little bit about. But it's interesting. We can't see all the guests here, but I've got my office war room here. And what's interesting about this entire presentation is we use this presentation over the last 14 years to hold ourselves accountable. Have we used our principles of war to be successful? If we're missing something, this is going to be our guide to make sure that we get back on track. So we're going to talk all about that. But I'm not as interesting as it sounds, I'm not a great self-promoter. I always say, look at my great team. These guys do all the hard work. So we are in Rockville. We've been doing this for about 14 years as a company. And our claim to fame right now is just really being in the fight against COVID. And we've really created, like everything we try to do, using the principles of war, is to create a comprehensive turnkey program and solution that fixes problems from A to Z, because we don't want to be A, B, and C. We want to do the whole alphabet. So that's been what we've spent most of our time on. And my team that's in my office war room in Rockville, as soon as we're done with this, is going to be doing that with about 2,000 or 3,000 schools in California, Arizona, North Carolina, and Missouri. so it's pretty much what we've done. But medical device company turned into COVID solutions, or any solutions really, focused in the medical and clinical world.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, let's do this. Let's turn over the platform to you. You can share your screen. I know you've got a PowerPoint, so why don't I drop off and we'll let you do your presentation.
So again, my name is Vince Proffitt, and when I was asked to talk to this group, I said, what am I going to talk about? I don't really like to talk about myself or my company even. It's just, if we're going to add value to the world, can we create a model? And as we were, I've used this every year, but can we do something even better? And that's what I really want to share with the group today. Is the neat thing about the principles of war is 9 of them, and no one's perfect, right? You're never going to have a 10 out of 10 on anything, right? But if you're an 8 out of 10 in one of the principles, maybe that's something your company or your executive team or your employees or whatever can focus on to improve. So every year we get together as a group and say, I tell everyone in my company, what have we not done well at? Let's go through the principles, remember them. And when I'm live with my group, obviously I have funny videos, and most of them are from the movie 300. But we've got, just so we really try to just put it all in a perspective, but you can do it with some of the quotes and whatnot. So what's neat is these quotes are based on the idea of, so why do we even talk about the principles? Because success demands a high level of logistical and organizational competence, as George Patton said in the original quote of this presentation. So this is a quick summary of myself. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but we have done an amazing job as a company of focusing on the federal government. But then what? What else can we do? And I will say, for this group, we are on the verge of some very incredibly amazing things, because if you create a model that works and you're dealing with things like a global pandemic, a lot of people have a lot of different solutions, but we did put it all together, and it's all starting to come out now, where no person that wants to solve a problem quickly wants to do the whole letters of the alphabet in every variable. Put them together for me, Spartan Medical, and that's what we've done. So where did it come from? From these principles. But my executive team, from my entire Spartan team, is absolutely the reason for any success. That's a different presentation that we're going to have of not the principles of war, but I do want to thank my entire team for even allowing me the time to be able to do this and talk to this organization. So our mission, very quickly, we started with the idea of few against many. Medical device world is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Thought, let's be experts at whatever we do, focus on our military background, integrity, service, dedication, excellence, get these core values moving. And then, like I said, when the world needed people to be competent and to step up and fight this fight of our generation, fly, fight, win, as I say, from the Air Force Academy, is we did it. And that testament, don't take my word for it. You'll see that over the next several weeks, in several months, as we continue to say, let's not just make a couple bucks as a business, let's actually solve the problem as consultants. So I would be remiss if I didn't have any presentation I do where I don't go Air Force, SIG, Navy. So I apologize to any of my friends that went to the Naval Academy, but it's just not going to happen. If someone's going to give me a microphone, I'm going to say go Air Force, SIG, Navy. So remember, 100% of the world is covered by air and space. So Bill, you know that.
That's perfect.
So here's what we figured out, everyone. We looked at 189 years of military theory, doctrine, training, and execution of that. Anyone that's a military officer, or all of us, over and over again, as a cadet, you learn every 10 minutes, it seems, we're talking about the principles of war. So it almost becomes, okay, we got it. Yes, there's 9 principles. We call it Moss Mouse, so you could remember it. So it's sunk in. And then from when you're a cadet until you're a general officer, and then you still go to general officer school and you're learning about the principles of war. So we thought, we've used these in business, but we went even further, and you're going to see how this all wraps in. So Karl von Clausewitz wrote the book On War in 1838 is when it was finalized, but it was a moving part. If anyone, one of my guys in my office said he was just finishing Sun Tzu, and he said, it's 41 hours to listen to On War. That's a big one, guy. So we decided, let's break it down, do a short presentation. But Clausewitz said, war is an extension of politics by other means. And some of these, phrases from the 1800s or whatever, they can be a little bit offensive. Politics, war, no one likes that, especially after 20 years in Afghanistan, because politics they are intertwined. But then my classmate Jeff is, well, if that's true, isn't business an extension of war by other means? That just happened yesterday. And it is, because what are we doing in business? We're competing. It doesn't mean it needs to be warfare, but the art of war, what we're doing here by learning these principles in business, in warfare, it doesn't have to be shooting guns, but it's an idea of competing and being the absolute best at what you do by adding value as a consultant, whatever it might be. That's what we're doing. And so we're going to work under the framework of business and extension of war by other means. And then the only other thing I want to say on this slide is one of the first presentations I ever did for my company when there were 5 of us was share victory, share defeat. And that set the theme for the past 14 years, because we're all in this together, guys. So as I discussed, principles of war, I'm not going to teach those 41 hours of Clausewitzian warfare, but it is the idea that we as military officers have all learned it. And the first thing I did in my building my company 14 years ago was say, I know these things, how can we apply them to business? But these things are incredibly important. And what's neat about the principles is they all have to work together. You can't do one without the other. So we're going to quickly move through them. But what I also, throwing out there is we kind of figured out something else here. So we're not just going to preach 180 some years of the principles of war. We created something that even puts them together even better. So why do it? Because a leader is supposed to be a person who can apply principles to circumstances. That's what we're doing here. You're going to see a lot of Patton because he was really good at what he did, and I'm a huge fan. So what if 189 years or 183, my notes, Jeff, do you know? 189 years. What if we figured out 189 years later, what if we figured out the 10th principle of war? So you guys are going to be the first. You can see I'm giddy. You guys are going to be the first organization that has seen the 10th, and you'll see how it all works here. I'm very excited about it. So let's go through the regular ones here, the first ones for the last 189 years. Principle, unity of command. Look, these seem obvious, but as companies grow and we get busier, there has to be some sort of concentration effort for your objectives under one responsible commander. Doesn't mean micromanagement, but as we see in the sub-bullets, some of these are focused on how I would brief my company up on this and my people. So please understand how these aren't for every company based on what you do, but we have to eliminate redundancy. And I would say as companies grow, and my war room would agree, is this becomes difficult. You get busy. Redundancy is no good. We're all doing the same thing if we don't have that unity command. And again, some people think this is, you don't want a king at the top of the level, but we have to know what our objectives are, and everyone has to assign to what they're supposed to do, and then we have to use our resources properly. And this is a small business organization, entrepreneurial. This is where people will get caught up, because if you're going to scale and you're going to grow, unity command is number one for a reason, because you've got to know your objectives. You've got to have a wise use of your resources, but you'll see with the rest of the principles, they do focus on that, how to use your resources properly. But as I would present to my group, all major project decisions have to filter up, and then we have to deconflict the airspace, refocus where we need to, which is why we have to talk about things like the principles of war. Otherwise, we're not refocusing because we don't know what we're missing. So you're going to use our available tools and resources based on things like this. So an organization of 10 people, 20 people, 100 people can sit down and say, what are we doing right? What are our objectives? Everyone knows how to create a vision, a mission, objectives. How do you hold yourself accountable? And there's, again, throughout this presentation, there's quotes that I just love so much. As a cadet at the academy, they had always made you memorize these things. And we didn't know why at the time, when you're running around like a goofball, memorizing things. But then when you're an adult in business, never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they'll surprise you with their ingenuity. I would say if there were 2 or 3 quotes that are the key to my success as an entrepreneur, this is definitely one of them. And you empower your people, and they allow them to show the whole world how they would do it. And they're going to create such magic because you didn't tell them exactly how to do something. And I'm telling everyone on this call, we do this daily. So these quotes are intertwined, tied to the idea that unity command does not mean micromanagement. It means tell them what to do, create the objectives, and they'll surprise you with their ingenuity. Unity of effort. We all are stretched thin. And when you create a global pandemic, in a sense that now we have to change based on something that none of us have experienced. Unity of effort, we all have to be directed towards the common aim, the objective, the mission. But what is that? And if you think about it, our mission was being a market leader and the best in the business. Sounds ridiculous, but could we do it? I hope so. I think we will, and we might be there. But all of our industries, whether you're Northrop Grumman or everyone is competing. But the idea that we all want to be the best, but with a coordinated, well-planned, unified effort, you can do it. If you don't have any of these principles are lacking, can't do it. So if you don't have a unity of effort for your entire organization to get to your objectives, then what's the point? It's not going to work. So individually, some of us, everyone in an organization, we're all very good at what we do. But when we put it all together, synergistically, we're unstoppable. And I excuse the language here on the, it wasn't me, it was George Patton, but an army is a team. Individuality stuff, we're all very good individuals. And being on webinars where you can work from home and whatnot, a team effort is how we win wars, not by individuality. So we have to be able to put that together, even through Zoom calls and whatnot. So unity of effort, we have to have the same objectives. Offensive, proactivity. That's what I turned it into, as opposed to an actual tenet of warfare, was we have to be proactive. We have to be able to move forward without being prompted, without being ordered, without being told what to do. Our sales cycles, if you're a sales organization, you have to be active, aggressive, self-sustaining, has to be a loop. You can't say, hey, has anyone gone to work today? That's not offensive. It could be offensive to the person listening. But from a tenet of warfare, everyone has to have active sales cycles, and they all have to be moving towards the same unity of effort under the objectives of the command. So we're already going back to tenet 1 and 2 on this. So obviously Patton said, go forward till the last round is fired, last drop of gas is expended, then keep going forward on foot. We'll let you know when the war is over. And some of these things, again, in this presentation, we have software tools that help us stay on the offensive. So for not everyone is in the same industry as Spartan Medical, but find the tools that you need. And if you don't have them that help you stay on the offensive, there's a bottleneck slowing you down, there's a software tool out there. Get a consultant. We use something specific to our industry called Implant Base. It's an amazing tool. But that helps us stay on the offensive because it doesn't bottleneck us, where we're sitting there talking about something that can be fixed by a simple software solution. So I would advise every company, find these things. Are we on the offensive? If not, let's find tools that'll get us there. Next tenet, maneuver. Oop, missed one, mass. Mass is tough because, again, in warfare, Napoleon was a master of all these, and we'll talk about Napoleon in a bit, but concentrating combat power at a decisive time and place. For us to turn this into business, we don't like single points of failure. If anyone that's known me for a day, I probably use this more than no single points of failure. Not only because it's a quality of life issue, because a single point of failure allows for failure, which is nothing that any of us want in our entrepreneurial businesses. So the idea is working in packs. We should always have, if you've got a primary, have a secondary with any task. And if there's a secondary and you got a new hire, make them a tertiary. There's no reason we shouldn't be working in packs and looking at our competition, our market, so that we can always seize on whatever's going on in the market, whether it's whatever's, it depends on the market. So I'm not going to say I know every single market in the world, but we have to communicate these to each other, to mass, and then take advantage of the opportunities, whatever they are in your different marketplace. So I always think of something like, a major market player in medical devices, gets a major recall because they weren't processing their tissue properly or something like that. Let's take advantage of that. So now as a group, we need to mass our talents to talk to all of these buyers that we have that are buying tissues, to recognize the fact that we have an opportunity here because someone wasn't doing things, a market leader wasn't doing something properly. So mass can be incredibly important for business, but it also allows us to have some semblance of a quality of life. So we're all not a single point of failure. So Basil Littlehart was one of these amazing tacticians and theorists, but another great quote that I remember having to memorize it. I was like, that's a long quote, but we should be able to distribute parts, aid each other, and combine a maximum concentration of force at one place while you can hold off whatever you're trying to do at the other place. And that was the key to Napoleonic warfare as well. But we have to be able to concentrate our forces to be as powerful as we can be as small businesses, because the big businesses have a lot more people, they have shareholders, they've got a lot more money. If we're going to compete as small businesses and entrepreneurs, we have to be able to mass. Maneuver, everyone loves maneuver. We have to shift resources. We have to be able to add value, remain flexible. This is the key where small businesses can beat the big guys. Applying our right resources, which small businesses are always more innovative, but we have to be able to apply it to the right customer. We can't throw stuff against the wall and hope it sticks. We have to be able to say, look, we've got a resource here. We've got a solution, but we've called this Spartan Jiu-Jitsu from the beginning, is being able to, whatever the market is doing, whatever your customers are doing, move with them. Don't fight them. There's no walls here. It's Spartan Jiu-Jitsu. So some organizations, and I know people in my company are going to giggle because I'm not going to be able to not bring up the Maginot line. It's the biggest blunder in military history, arguably, but it was a wall. You can't fight wars based on a wall. So what you have to do is have that flexibility, and you have to be able to maneuver. And part of the reason that the Maginot line didn't work is because the enemy maneuvered around it. Very simply, walls don't work. And if you think about business, guys, we build walls in business. Think about that as you look at this presentation and look at your own businesses. Create jiu-jitsu. And Sun Tzu nailed it. And you don't need to know anything about Sun Tzu other than the fact that it was, if your enemy goes left, you go right. That is the key. A lot of words in a book, The Art of War. But this is a great quote. If your enemy is secure at all points, be prepared. If he's superior in strength, evade him. I mean, fascinating stuff. Don't go into that battle. If he's temperamental, seek to irritate him. I mean, this is stuff that it's not, it seems like common sense, but we get too tied up into our daily business that we don't think strategically. But this is how we become the next big company, the next most successful company, is by doing these things: the art of war, or the principles of war, economy of force. Prioritize bang for our buck here. And any small business has to use economy of force. Obviously, in every one of these, we use the quote that we are summarizing the military tactic, but a rational use of force, selecting the best mix of combat power. In the military, we always say, you don't need to use a 2,000-pound bomb if you can use a 9mm round, right? So we all understand these, but how do we do it in business? We want overwhelming combat power because we want to win, but minimal power can be used to create. If you can create your goal with minimal, isn't that a better economy of force? So for us in business, we are spending money. So we can't constantly use 2,000-pound bombs. So prioritize best bang for our buck. This is what we do with our team meetings. So all of us have teams that we're coordinating and trying to get them to go in the field and do whatever their job is. So economy of force is how we organize our to-do list with our people. And it's a software. I don't want to promote Salesforce. We don't use it, but everyone has heard the name Salesforce. We use implant-based, but it doesn't matter. It's the idea of having software technologies or whatever it might be, but people need to be involved to work with everyone up and down the chain of command to create this economy of force, because otherwise small businesses won't be able to compete. Security, we forget this sometimes. We can all be great and have the greatest military force, business force, but if our own customers, our own current business isn't protected because we forgot to add value, we forgot to do the things that made us great, that allowed us to go do other things or allowed us to go to the next customer, we have to remember that the reason we got to the point we are is we have to take care of what got us there, and that's security. Friendly forces in our operations, protecting from enemy action, to provide the enemy with an unexpected advantage. Let's not ever allow this to happen as small businesses. And as Stonewall Jackson said, my troops may fail to take a position, but are never driven from one. If we take all these principles, some are going to be more important to your businesses than others. But if you don't have security, doesn't it all fall apart? How do you maneuver if you can't secure your flanks, right? You can't have one without the other, and you can't have 8 of them without the 9th. And what we figured out in the next couple seconds, you're going to find is you can't have 9 of them without the 10th. So principle 8, surprise, another great way to compete. So again, some of these bullets, I don't want to get too deep into my industry, but I'll tell you that this is what we do: prioritizing targets, a concrete game plan, using the resources, shock and awe type of thing, where we're getting after where we can maneuver, where we have weaknesses in the marketplace. But surprise is the ability to go ahead and do it, as opposed to waiting for someone else to attack at a time, place, or a manner where your enemy is not prepared. And our enemies in business are our competitors. So we have to be moving forward. Everyone told Patton he couldn't run across France in the time frame that he did. He said, watch me. So audacity, always audacity. And for our competitors in our businesses, if you're a market leader, you're not doing this. You're holding your ground. So with surprise, you're able to force your competitors to hunker down, protect their core business while we go ahead and provide the latest, greatest technologies that put these people at risk from a business standpoint. And the last principle of what Clausewitz decided in 1836 is simplicity. We could go all day with the other 8 principles, but if it has to be simple, it has to be quick. And one of my favorite quotes in the whole world is, of course, George Patton's, do your full duty and the rest will take care of itself. And I will tell you, as a business owner, if a financial planner were to come to me and say, what are your business goals in the next 1, 3, 5 years? What are your financial goals? Your own personal financial goals? I'd say, I don't have any. And they'd say, this has to be theater. It can't be true. I don't. I'm going to go to work and do the best I can. And my team and my troops will do the same. And the rest will take care of itself. Seems simplistic and overly simplistic, but it does actually work. And if you think anyone that served in the military, we're never going to be masters and commanders, everything out there. No one's going to read 41 hours of someone reading on war, right? But we just did it in 30, 40 minutes. But if we do our full duty and we have the gaff factor, as we would say in the military, the care factor, if we all are pushing and using these principles and working together as a team, the rest will take care of itself. But it's got to be relatively simple. And so this toolbox can do that, but you can't overcomplicate it. So this is what I've been alluding to, is what is missing. And what's neat is we have one of our directors, Eric, when we're talking to customers and they we don't quite know what they want. Eric's the guy that will say, but why? And if I were the customer, I'd say, why what? What are you talking about? What are you asking me? But he won't go any further and just say, why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Right? So all of these principles of war, one of the things we've realized as we're trying to potentially solve the entire K through 12, college, and even business soft or pandemic crisis by creating programs that work, many of these things we've said, are we asking the right question? So what's fascinating about this question is that we, as military historians, sat back and said, where did Napoleon learn principles of war from? Yesterday, one of my Erica, one of my other Erics called the Air War College. Jeff here, one of my classmates for the academy, called the United States Air Force Academy of Military Arts and Science professors. They didn't answer our call, which we were mad about. But we don't know the answer to this day. And we've gone through all the military theories. What was Napoleon looking at when he did what he did? So what happened is Clausewitz took decades to write on war. Napoleon was long gone by the time it was published. When did Napoleon die? Wasn't it 1824? This was published in 1836. But as military officers, Napoleon used the principles of war and he changed warfare. Not the case. So as we were theorizing, and as business owners and entrepreneurs, we think we're working so hard day after day, but do you ever have time to think? And that's what we did yesterday. We were in the day before. Let's think a little bit and ask the right questions. So we've created the 10th principle of war, which is so interestingly and intricately tied to this, because the 9 principles of war we've been following for hundreds of years are based on a bit of a false premise. It's a chicken and the egg situation here. So we have changed the world because Napoleon, we don't know where he learned it. Frederick the Great? Maybe, but he didn't put it all together. So we took this on war book and said, Napoleonic tactics encompassed, let's follow that for the next 189 years. But it was a decade and a half after he died. So this idea of, are we asking the right questions, creates a feedback loop for the other 9 principles. And I will tell you, the reason that we're so excited about this is based on everything that's happened in our business. If we had to pick one principle, remember, you can't have one without the other. If you don't have a unity of command, if you can't maneuver, if you haven't secured your flanks, there's no success. But are you asking the right question will change everyone's life in business, in warfare. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, if you start with this, and you're also reviewing the other 9 principles, while also understanding that it might have been, for 189 years, we've kind of been under a false premise, doesn't mean that the principles don't work. Because historically, it was retrospectively that they figured out why these work. But are we asking the right questions? So that's really what I really wanted to accomplish today, because it's not about me, my business, my amazing troops, my executive team, nothing to do with that. It's just, we have to have the ability to stop, think, adjust, and repeat. And how do we do it? We believe that we just changed the planet Earth with the 10th principle of war. And maybe we all will get famous on this call for that. It's not about that. It's the fact that we as small business owners need the tools to be able to quickly adjust and compete with the monsters of the world, the multi-billion-dollar megaliths that will beat us all day long unless we can be more nimble, more maneuverable, more effective. We can get there quicker than they can. And these principles do it. But you can't do one without the other. You can't do the other 9 without the 10th, which is, are we asking the right questions? So that was why we were so excited about this, because the 11th principle, we're not going to make an 11th, but the idea to be able to stop and think for a minute. And in this world we live in right now, it doesn't seem like anyone has much time to do that. But we just proved it as a fun, project to be able to talk to all of you. Let's think. Let's just think, and then get back to our principles, and then create 180. Now it's 1-year-old. We just changed planet Earth. Clausewitz may be rolling over in his grave because we just put it all together with the 10th principle of war. Smart medicals. So my team always told me I can't do anything.
Man, never has anybody done the timing as fine as you have here. So beautiful, beautiful. It was well worth staying up 3 o'clock at night. Prepping. Hey, this is great. Bunch of questions I have, and then we'll turn it to the audience. Actually, I'm only going to ask 2. I have a number. I'm going to start at the end and then maybe work back to something you said a little bit earlier. Are we asking the right questions? I'm a big fan of Elon Musk, and I've been watching his entrepreneurial vision and how he approaches big problems. And I just haven't seen anybody on the scale of what he does. But one thing he said, there's a interview with somebody, took him through about 2.5-hour interview, broken into 3 pieces about his SpaceX and what he's doing with the rapid development there. But he says one of his biggest mistakes is maximizing systems that could have been eliminated. And he says that's kind of the engineer's problem. And when I heard you say, are you asking the right questions? He went into this story about how they were maximizing this sheet that went in between his battery pack and the car. And they were spending hours and hours about maximizing. And he says, we weren't asking the right question. He said, the question was, do we even need the sheet? So we went to one group, and the one group said, oh, we only have it there because the battery group said to have it. And then the battery group said, oh, we only had it there because the safety group said that we had to have it. So it immediately reminded me when you were talking about asking the right questions. Just as a quick thought, because this may be relatively new for you, but how do you go about trying to make sure you're asking the right questions?
I mean, honestly, it's come up so much in the last several weeks because we've been doing so many things that are more complex than we've ever done before. And again, I've got myself and other people, members of my team, we've run air wars before, and that seemed simpler than what we're doing right now because there's so many moving parts. So as we're trying to maneuver through these using our principles of war and the idea of being efficient as a small business, trying to be able to handle things, thousands and thousands of schools and businesses and universities, how do we do this? And it all came back to, let's start from the beginning, right? Where's the best way to tell a story? Start at the beginning. Are we asking the right questions? And it seems to fix everything, really, because there are simple things like we're trying to fix problems that if we asked the right question from the beginning, it wouldn't have been a problem. And to your point, and Elon Musk, is way too many businesses as we grow, we're siloed. I call it siloed. I turned the word silo into a verb, but everyone is siloed because you're focused on what you do, and then someone else is focused on what they do well. And there's not a lot of communication between the silos. Doesn't mean we don't communicate at all, but the idea is we're trying to eliminate those silos with effective communication. But the idea is everyone is in their silo. Everyone's a frog in a pot. And whenever there's a problem, the first question we should all be asking is, okay, there's a conflict, there's a problem, we don't know how to fix it. Let's go back to, are we asking the right question? And as your example said, we don't even need X, Y, and Z. And that's a problem. And we're talking about how to fix a problem that isn't even a problem, right? Let's get all the silos involved and start from the beginning. And I could probably give 53,000 more examples of the simplest question. If it can't be answered, especially for a small business, why are we even bothering doing this? Usually solves every problem because the silos that this have not communicated effectively.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You had one other thing, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience. You had mentioned something that's near and dear to my heart and something that I preach with the clients, that business owners that I work with, and that is understanding where your single points of failure are. And you're really one of the first, if not the only entrepreneur that has brought that up as an important piece. Just tell us this concept of single point of failure. Why is it so important to your firm to make sure that you don't have that?
And for us, especially, starting as a medical device implant company, we always thought to ourselves, we always use the term, if I get hit by a bus, what happens next? Because we're dealing with patient care. So if I can't show up, as an example, and there's a hip revision tomorrow, the instruments and the implants and things don't get there, that patient can't get the surgery that they need because of me, because I got hit by a bus, right? So the concept is always never, ever, ever allow for a single point of failure. And if you do, it kind of goes to the silo example I gave as well, but that's more administratively. But the idea is if someone else can't do what you do, or isn't trained in it, then your whole business is going to fail, because one single point of failure uses that F word, which I've used the F word now in this conversation just because we're being theoretical more than I ever have, because it is the worst word in the world. Failure. It hurts me to say it because it's a self-inflicted wound. There should never be a single point of failure. And most failures are caused by the fact that nobody knows what to do when person X, Y, and Z, resource X, Y, and Z gets hit by a bus. So we should always have a backup plan. Someone should know your job, maybe not perfectly, but enough to get through.
Well
And
enough.
My
right.
company, for my company, we got hit by a lightning bolt three and a half years ago with my late brother, who was a fire and forget missile as a lawyer and vice president of sales of my company. And he did everything because he was a lawyer. And when he passed, we We didn't know, he was on his own. He was doing things that we had no clue. We didn't even know his passwords. But we figured it out as a group. And then we said, we cannot allow anyone, including myself as the owner, any of my executives, any of our lowest, our new hire that just got hired for 2 days cannot be a single point of failure, because the amount of time and effort we spend to try to fix that is it will shut down a business. But everyone should have a backup plan. We know that, but all of us as entrepreneurs get caught in that idea of like, this guy's good to go. Don't worry about what he's doing. We should all know his duties, responsibilities, and the ability for someone to sit with him for a few hours a week and say, what do you do? How do you do it? You know, and really understand it. Maybe write it down. So,
Excellent.
no single points of failure. We have to eliminate.
Excellent. Love it. Love it. Great stuff.